start. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. This is the Get Ahead Education Services, and today's session, we're going to be discussing how to study in the United States of America with a fully funded scholarship. So whether you're preparing for undergraduate studies or postgraduate studies, you are in the right platform. You are at the right place at the right time. So we're going to just go ahead and start. Mira is a researcher in one of the universities in the United States of America. You have seen the post everywhere, okay? New York University is a no-mean university. So Mira is going to just take us through the process. And my first question to Mira would be, when does the university application in the US open? Why I'm sending out this question is because, you know, I studied in the UK and I have most of the information about UK admission at the tip of my finger, but I know nothing about studying in the USA. And I know that for UK, we have the January, the May, and the September academic session, okay? But the September is the most popular, which is the autumn session. Tell us about the times. What are the application sessions, or when does application open over there?
Thank you so much, Kuseme, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And thank you so much for everyone who has joined. My name is actually Samira. I am, like Kuseme correctly said, a PhD candidate here in New York University. And I'm actually very excited to be here. This has been a long time coming. Now, to get into the main thing, right? When does application start, like in the US? When does it open?
Yeah.
Correctly, like you said, there are several cycles of application, right? But here in the US, the two most popular cycles of application is the spring and the fall. The spring is January and the fall is September. But applications for both have different deadlines. So if you are planning, for instance, to start studying in the US, this January of 2023, applications closed yesterday, which is October 1.
Oh, okay.
However, if you are planning on coming for September 2023, which is the fall semester, which honestly does have the most funding and the most intake, right? So September has the most funding, has the most intake. Applications usually close December. It varies. Some schools say December 1, some schools say December 15. But the latest you should get your application through the door is December 15 of the year prior. So for instance, if you want to apply to start September 2023, by December 1 or December 15, 2022, your application should already be in the door.
Interesting. So that means this session is just coming at the right time.
At the right time, at that exact
October,
right time.
and candidates have about 8 weeks, the following 8 weeks, to get their applications ready. Thank you, Mira, for that. Now, I'm going to just ask about the documents, okay? Because knowing when the application begins is one thing, and getting ready for it is another thing. Since candidates have about 8 weeks to go or to begin the applications, could you just run us through what are the document requirements for studying in the US? I know that you did your undergraduate and master's, including your PhD in the US. What are the most frequent documents that universities do ask for over there?
Actually wish I did my undergrad in the US, but no.
Oh,
I did my undergraduate in the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, right? But I did my master's and I'm doing my PhD right now in the US. And I'm going to start from an international student perspective because I'm an international student and majority of the people watching right now are international students, right?
Students, yeah.
So Ghana, Nigeria, I believe Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Kenya, everybody in Africa pretty much has the same requirements unless you are from a non-English speaking country. So people who are from Francophone countries have a separate requirement than people who are from English speaking countries. So people from English speaking countries typically require the regular stuff, right? You require, if you are coming for a master's or PhD, would determine how vigorous the requirements would be. For instance, if you want to come for a master's, maybe the school would not require a GRE, If you are from an English-speaking country, you might be able to argue your the source of your education. Probably you were taught in English. Your mode of instruction from your university was in English. So you obviously have been able to go through the English system, and you don't need any TOEFL to prove that you can speak and understand and write English.
Yes.
And then you need letters of recommendation. 3, typically, some schools take 2, some schools take 1. It's up to, so it varies, but I'm just giving you like the breakdown of like a general requirement, right?
Yeah.
So you need your letters of recommendation, often called the LORs. You need your statement of purpose, which is your SOP, and you sometimes would need a personal statement and a statement of purpose. I already covered it on my channel, the difference, and you should know how to approach these 2 separate documents. Some schools will also require a cover letter as well.
Wow.
You know, so yeah. And funny enough, some schools will require a video.
A video
So
of
I am telling you, girl. So when I was applying to NYU, I was required to give a 1-minute video of what I intend to come do. So some schools,
after writing in your statement of
okay. So some schools have it different, but generally these are the basics. You might be required to provide a GRE, TOEFL, letters of recommendation, SOP, cover letter, personal statements, and yeah, those are the main things.
Transcripts, I believe.
And transcripts, I'm sorry. And most importantly, your academic transcripts. That escaped me, I'm sorry. Most importantly, academic transcripts, yeah.
Interesting. That sounds like a lot more documents, because I know that in most UK universities, personal statement is just fine, but I've really never heard about cover letter and a video for university application. This is new to me. Thank you for letting us know that. And I know when I was asking the very first question about when the application opened, I know that you've already covered them when it closes, but could you just clarify? You said that most application season or academic session is in fall, if I'm correct. So,
most intake.
Yeah, okay, most intake. So can you take us through the application cycle for the university? Just a little reminder of when exactly do most universities close the application? Is it strictly December, or are there options from some universities open for people to apply maybe in January, or is it just this year and that's it?
Okay, this is Riri, right? So I'm going to spill the tea. Honestly, from an international student perspective, the earlier you apply, the better, because application deadline is different from funding deadline. Usually, they want to get a lot of people out the door as soon as possible in terms of the limited resources that they have in like funding resources. So when you are applying, 8 weeks is a very short time to apply and get full funding. Because why are we here? We are here to talk about how to get full funding, right? Because, for instance, this year, I am mentoring a couple of students, and the funding application actually closed in June. The funding application.
That should be for spring session. Please tell me.
The funding application actually closed in June.
For what?
So if you are now for spring.
Okay.
So if you are now in so pretty much, not to scare anybody, but it's like you need to do your homework and do it right, because getting full funding pretty means you are being catered for, and that runs into thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So for them to be able to invest that much, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So what is required is that you've done your homework and you deserve to be in that position. So they pretty much give out the funding so early on. So people who put in the application late in December probably will not get funding, truth be told. Truth be told, right? So the earlier you get your foot through the door, the better, because you can apply for funding and you are able to secure scholarships. You are able to navigate through getting and speaking to professors and faculty who actually have funding. And sometimes in your application process, they want you to already speak to a professor and familiarize yourself with the professor in the university, and the professor is going to be on your admission committee and vouch for you.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes too, it's now required. You apply directly even without contacting the professors. So it's very much varies school by school. So it's kind of like, it's going to be really, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's going to be a hard task to streamline every application process through one cap-fits-all process.
Yeah.
It's very different for every school, right? But in general, it's two things. You can apply to the school and apply for the funding and apply for the scholarship, or you can look for professors who actually have the funding, speak to them, give them your CV, give them your pitching like statement as to why you should be there. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I actually have a space in my lab, or I have a space in my department. You can apply. I'm definitely gonna like talk about like you during the admission committee selection process, right? So it's two things. So to answer your question and not let the whole thing drag so long, it's earlier you put in your application and put your foot through the door before the deadline, way before the deadline.
All right, thank you so much for that clarification. You said something about contacting professors to know if they have, funding. I understand that that is more frequent with PhD. Does this also apply to undergraduates?
For undergraduates, sorry, I was here so long. I need to turn on the light, but that's fine. So for undergraduate applications, it's a completely different ball game because hardly there are, but the ratio of getting more PhDs through the door as an international student are way higher than getting undergrads. Because here in the US, undergrads that are citizens, undergrads that are permanent residents take precedence than international students in getting funding. That's just the hard truth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So for you to be an international student, no permanent residency, no citizenship, to get full funding, it's doable, but it's harder. And you need to put in the work a lot more. Because when you click on, for instance, you click on any university, right? Undergrad, they usually say, well, the fund, and you click on the scholarships. Well, eligibility, like the very first line, you need to be a US citizen or a permanent resident.
Okay.
First line, they don't even want you to stress yourself. Like just listen to the first eligibility before you go on, right? Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That is really eye-opening. I wouldn't have suspected.
Yeah, it's an eye-opener.
Okay. Well, I guess that the solution for this would be for people or international students to look out for organizations that sponsor international students to the US. There are some scholarships. For instance, the video I recently shared on my channel about different scholarships for international students. The MasterCard Foundation Scholarship actually funds students to some universities in the United States. So those are the kind of scholarships you look out for if you want to get an undergraduate scholarship to study in the US. As Mira has said, it is much easier to get a PhD funding, or let's even say master's funding, than to get an undergraduate funding. Sometimes I'm happy that I am done with undergraduate because I feel like there's so many opportunities for postgraduate studies than there are for undergraduate studies. So thank you so much, Mira. Now, let's just, let's keep the funding part for now. And I want to study in the US. I have funding, I have money. I can afford my studies for now. So it's not about funding. If I want to go for whether an undergraduate or postgraduate degree, how do I select an ideal university to go for? There are lots of universities. Even in New York, there are different universities, let alone the entire US. How do I narrow down my option to identify the right university for me?
That's a very good question, actually, because if you are going to be there for a number of years, you have to be in a space that serves you right, that's well to your whole well-being, because you're going to be there. You have to interact with the community, with the university community, campus community. So actually selecting a university to attend is actually one of the top, I don't know, preferences that any students would actually want to take part in. And the steps I would suggest in applying for selecting a university would be to know what programs you are interested in. So for instance, if you are strict on studying, I'm studying chemistry, so I'm just going to use chemistry as an example. So if you are going to study chemistry, you know there are different branches on chemistry. So there's medicinal chemistry, there's computational chemistry, there's theoretical chemistry, there's analytical, there's inorganic, there's materials, so many, right? You need to know which of these subclasses or divisions of chemistry that aligns with your interests. And then you know which universities actually have professors that you would want to work with to that regard. As an undergrad, it's very easy because you'll be taking classes, you only do research for like a couple of semesters to just gather your thesis and you are done. But for PhD and postgraduate, PhD, masters, you would be vigorously doing research. So it's like you need to be in a place that serves you and kind of like your optimum abilities is kind of harnessed, right? Yeah. So the very first step I would say is know what you want to do. So if you want to do chemistry, you search on your regular, maybe, and the thing is a lot of people undermine Google. A lot of people undermine Google, but Google is actually one of the topmost search engines that you can find. Yeah. And I don't know why people are undermining Google, but Google is one of the topmost search engines you can find because you can literally narrow down the exact keywords that you're looking for, right? So for instance, if you are interested in studying in maybe New York, or you don't even want to study, like you don't want to even break down the states, you just want to say USA. Yep. Oh, okay, well, top analytical chemistry universities in the USA. Okay, top theoretical chemistry universities in the USA. You just glance through what the people they are doing. You glance through the faculty. Okay, well, this is what this person is interested in. Okay, is this something that aligns with what I want to do? Then you can actually apply and be like, well, in your statements, you tell your professors, well, I've actually read so much about your work and I'm super keen on joining your department. I am so ecstatic. I'm so interested. I'm so excited to join the department and the community. And, you know, because it shows that you've done your homework, right? Yeah. You can't just be like, oh, let me just waltz through and just pick any university. You know, you don't do that, right? You want to be sure to have done your homework and make it known. It's not bragging per se, but it's letting them know you've done your homework. Yep. And trust me, these people find it really, really pleasing when students tell them, oh, I've really done my homework and I really want to be here because I read what you did. Oh my God, it's fascinating. They be like, oh, okay. And they are interested. But if you just be like, let me see how it goes, which one will pick me? You know, that isn't the way to go about it. Yes. Okay.
So that's very important. Thank you so much, Mira, for that. I love what you just said. You said Google is the #1 search engine in the world. And
absolutely.
What you said about going to Google to say top analytical chemistry university, you did not say best university in the US.
No, I
said this yesterday on my channel. It's as if we have the same thought process. You know what people want? People want to go to the best universities in the world, which is a very good thing. But
the competition is insane.
Okay. Apart from that, a university that is good in engineering may likely not be good in law. There are some options. There are some schools that are good in most areas, but sometimes it's not necessarily the case. So it is better you approach, the search, or you narrow it down based on your area of interest. So you start from there. By the time you identify that, you will see the universities that come up, and you can compare and contrast. I usually also tell people, when you see the course title that meets what you want to research, open it up, check the content. What is it that they are teaching? Sometimes a lot of people have come back to me saying, oh, Couscous, I've seen this university. I've seen 3 universities that are offering the course that I want, but I checked the content. I don't like what these people are offering. That shows that 3 universities might have the course that you desire, but the content, the modules may necessarily not meet your specifications, your specific needs, which is why you should take a step further after you've identified the university, go through the course content. Am I going to be happy at the end of the day? After taking these modules, is it enough for me? Is it what I want? So yes, thank you, Mira, for that, for showing that we think alike. I'm just going to go ahead to proceed to the next question. But before I do, I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat box, which is very impressive. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. If you're just joining us now, you're very welcome. We have been discussing so far. Mira has told us about the application cycle for, US universities, the deadlines, and the frequent documents that are usually demanded for applications to US universities. If you have any questions, you can put them down in the chat box. I'm going to be collating questions, and we are going to ask Mira these questions at the end of the session if she has not addressed them. So yes, thank you so much, Mira, so far. I'm just going to go straight to the next question because I have a whole lot of questions here for you. So I hope you're ready. Okay, so the one you just answered was that I had money to fund my studies. So which university should I go for? And you have clearly told me that I should, search for universities that are good, for my course. Now, I don't have money, but I want to study in the US. So, Mira, please, could you tell us what are the available funding opportunities for international students? I know that you've already addressed that of undergrads. You've already said that most undergraduate scholarships are available to residents and citizens of the US. So now let's talk about at least possible funding options for master's and PhD students or international students. Could you take us through a few options that are available? What are the funding opportunities for international students, and how can they access these opportunities?
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I would want to start top bottom. So for PhD, I would say the vast majority of the PhDs are already fully funded. Oh. So with that, because PhD typically ranges from 3 to 5 years or more, but on an average is 3 to 5 years, it's counted as work experience because in other words, you're actually going to be working. PhD is research intensive, be it in the lab or off the lab or anywhere else, you are still doing research, right? If you are gathering data, you are working with chemicals, you are working with people, you are gathering surveys, it's still research, and they count it like a job. So there's something called the stipend that you are being paid, apart from them or the university paying for your tuition. So the other thing with the PhD is to get the right PhD in terms of funding. Not all PhD fundings are right. Some PhD fundings will bring you, and Charlie. Some PhDs are correctly funding you, but Charlie, like, but it's up to you to actually check out the opportunities that the PhDs would bring, check out the stipend, check out the city, check out the housing, check out a lot of other factors. I'll use myself as an example. My master's was in Greensboro in North Carolina, where the cost of living is significantly lower than New York City. Yeah. So if I was to take the same stipend that I was taking in North Carolina here in New York City, I'll probably be sleeping on the streets, right? Oh. Because you need to match up, right? So again, funding. As an international student, I always strategize and communicate to that diverse, dynamic set of people, because that's who I believe I'm talking to, and that's what I can talk to. I didn't have money to pay for my tuition. So I kind of always want to bring more info to international students. As an international student, PhDs are funded. And like I already said, you need to be sure that whatever you are being offered matches your livelihood. For masters, it's 50-50. You get funding, you fight for funding. For masters, you don't necessarily are offered funding off the go. You have to now seek for funding because masters is significantly shorter. The amount of research man hours and output you can produce to the university significantly are always less in a shorter amount of time than the output you can bring to the university in, say, 3, 5, 6, 7 years. So they feel, like I said, to whom much is given, much is required. So if you are going to be in the university for at least 2 years, they would want to fund you if necessary, but sometimes you would have to fight for the funding. Fight doesn't necessarily mean you have to go through hook and crook, but it's like you need to search, do your due diligence. In your department, if your professor is willing to fund you, what you would get what you would do in return is probably going to be a research assistant, teaching assistant, or both, right? So that is what you are giving, plus your research, and then you get funded. So it's like a barter trade thing, right, for masters. So for also masters, I've seen people who do interdisciplinary research, where, okay, well, I'm interested in psychology, but the funding psychology has isn't enough. So I'm going to work with maybe sociology, you know, part-time. So I'm researching, my main department is psychology, but I'm doing a little bit of research for people in the sociology department to get more, or even economic department to get more collaboration, and then I'm getting some stipend from there. So with masters, you have the flexibility of, you know, extending your tentacles and doing interdisciplinary stuff. Of course, with the go ahead of your PI or your supervisor, you are able to like get more support from every other place to, you know, help you. And then for, like we already talked about it, for then bringing it down to undergrad, there are undergrad full funding, but you need to search harder because it's comparatively fewer than postgrad.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And that does not just apply to US, it's also applicable to the UK, because if you check online and you see 20 kinds of, you know, funding opportunities, 15 will likely be for masters and PhD. And just about 2 or 3 will consider undergraduate studies. Now, something you said that really caught my attention, and it's very important for people to note. You want to get funding. It is a good thing for you to start searching, but it doesn't mean you should hop on every funding opportunity. Just like what she said, do not shoot yourself on the foot where you take a funding opportunity that you basically be living from hand to mouth. You'll be better.
And you don't even have time to focus on your research anymore.
Right, because you'll be looking for how to make more money so you can sustain yourself. So this is very important. Please, as much as you're looking for funding, also research, you know, what does it cover, okay? Is this money going to be enough for me to survive? Am I going to be able to live a good life? Another thing with regards to funding is, even when you're looking for funding, I usually advise people to start saving up. If you want to raise a GoFundMe, please go for it. If you want to take a student loan, go for it, because it is better that you are studying and you're focused than taking all sorts of jobs just so you can survive. And that way you're completely distracted from the studies that you originally went to do.
Might I add that as an international student, you need to maintain a minimum GPA of 3.0 to be in good standing.
In US universities?
Yes, please.
Are you for real?
Yeah. So you tread with caution.
Well, does that mean that if you go below that, you will be suspended or asked to withdraw?
I haven't met somebody who is an international student and gone beyond that, but I would advise you read, whoever is applying should go through the academic standing protocol of because sometimes with funding, it's clearly stated. You need to maintain a minimum of 3.0 to be able to still be with this funding.
Yeah,
It's clearly stated. Yeah.
I have seen that in a couple of scholarships as well. Okay, now somebody asked a question. I was going to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it in the way the person asked, because I think you've answered some of it. It's still going to be about funding. Maro in the comment section said, how best do I request for funding in my statement of purpose? How do I present it to the admissions committee? And that was similar to what I was going to ask. I'm going to be seeking for funding. How do I put myself forward in such a way that I will be irresistible? Okay, the professor would say, I want to fund this person. What is it that I have to do in that, my personal statement? Or do we have to write a different letter specifically for funding?
No, that's a very good question and a very serious question. It means the person is actually serious about what's going on, because that's very, very serious. So for statement of purpose, the first paragraph should be, selling yourself to stupor, like selling yourself, your abilities, what you've done. The second part, and it should be at least a page or two, it depends on your preference. The second paragraph should be, your past, what you've done, all of the highlight, all the volunteering you've done, all of the activities that you've done that has benefited your university or your clubs or societies. Then the third paragraph, if I come, what can I do? If I come to this, or when I come to these universities, based off of my experience, this is what I know I'll be able to do. Now you are putting yourself in the future, and that is where you chip it in. With the sufficient funding that would be given to me, I know that I'll be able to, if it's graduate teaching assistant, if it's graduate research assistant, if it's whatever, you are not asking, but you are telling them that with the sufficient funding that this school is able to give me, I would be able to, talk about if you're interested in graduate research assistantship, graduate teaching assistantship, put it in there at that third paragraph, right? That's where you want to put it in and let them know that when this is actually given to you, this is what you'll be able to do. And you also want to link it that, okay, well, I was able to do this with the little that was given to me. So with whom much is given, much is required, and I would be able to deliver based off of, so it's not like you are directly saying, give me funding, I need funding, but you are coercing your words nicely to let them know that indeed you are looking at funding, indeed you are looking at graduate teaching assistantship or any form of getting stipend, and this is what you are willing to give back when that is given to you. Yeah.
Interesting. So it's like saying, I need you to fund me because these are the different values I would give you at the end of the day. When you fund me, it's like you're investing in me. So you're just pitching.
It is what they are doing, actually. Yes. They're investing in natural paths.
And they want to reap, actually. They want to reap from the investments. Nobody wants to fund a student who is not going to be of value to the university. I remember when I was doing my master's, in fact, not just when I was doing my master's, up till today, my funding organization still uses me for whatever they want to do. They just want to ensure that at the snap of their finger, you are available. We were always there to go for any kind of events they want us to, help out our professors during inductions. We were there. Oh my God. I
saw your Instagram. I saw your Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody wants to fund an individual that they would look around and you are not there, or even if you are there, you're not making their workload lesser. So all you need to do is show them that you are going to be very valuable to them, and it will be a good decision to actually fund you. So thank you. I'm seeing in the comment section, well, Mara, your question has been answered, and she's saying thank you for the clarification, Mira. I am going to proceed now. I want to believe that you have been able to, at least you understand what it means or what it takes to solicit for funding through your personal statements or your statements of purpose. Let me know if anybody still has any question regarding the issue of funding. Now we're going to move to the interesting parts. Mira, all I can say is if you're studying in the UK and it is a one-year master's degree, you have 20 hours of work time. You have 20 hours to work. You cannot exceed 20 hours. And that's during term time. And then we have maybe 2-3 weeks in between of each semester to have fun, take some breaks, travel, go on holidays. So I would like you to share with us, what is it like being a student in the US? You've been there, you've been studying there for some years now. So you're going to share with, I know that for researchers, you know, for PhD, it might be much more hectic, but what was it like as a master's degree student? And if you know, what is it like as an undergraduate student in the, you know, studying in the US? What was your experience like?
Well, thank you so much again for that question. All of your questions have been giving back to back, so thank you. I would start from the undergrad because I have a couple of experiences as an undergrad here as well. I did the study abroad thing, so I was here as an undergrad as well. And with an undergraduate degree, or with seeking an undergraduate degree in the USA, during the semester, you are, as an international student, again, you are given 20 hours ability to probably work in the library or work in the Student Resource Center or work, you know, like you are given that flexibility to do those things during the semester. And in summer, which is obviously like fall semester, spring semester, and then we have the summer semester, it's up to you to seek internship, right? So you can seek an internship opportunity. Of course, you would have applied way before. And if you get the internship opportunity, you are able to like do an internship. Or you can ask, and I would say, be it that you are undergrad, master's, PhD, be very, very conversant with your International Student Center and your Student Relation Center. Those two places are your go-to resources for availability of options when it comes to work, you know. And for instance, as an undergrad, you are able to maybe work in the library for the summer hours and get paid. But if you are not aware of that opportunity by now, like getting conversant with your like Student Resource Center, International Resource Center, you probably would not know, right? And you just be chilling. And of course, like that's for people who are being funded and they don't really have the means to like live without it, right? Because remember, you are going to be in housing for the summer.
Yeah.
You're going to be in housing for the summer. And you're going to have to pay rent. You're going to have to. So, I mean, that's for people who want, you know, like some other set of people who already brought in the money and they are good, right? So that's for undergrad. For masters, the same thing occurs. But for masters, it's really prerogative that you seek internships, right? And also for masters, what is also available, I'm going to use myself as an example. So during my masters, just after the first year and I was approaching the summer, I struggled for internship. I went to all of these career fair. And one thing you should do is if you are interested in working in the summer, make sure to attend all the career fairs in the fall. That way you might even get interviewed on site and secure your summer internship in fall. That way, by the summer, you probably go and intern with Apple. Who knows, right? So you need to make sure you are always ahead of the game and you are like stepping up and you are already like on top of your game. And every single university I know do career fair. Every single university in the US, where they invite people from industry to come talk about their companies and recruit potential employees, right? Or interns or co-op, right? So for me specifically, I tried so much, but I didn't get an internship. And I was like, what do I have to do? Because I have to pay rent for the summer. And then I started reaching out to all the departments that had funding for the summer. And I worked with a lady who was synthesizing cement. I'm a chemist. I got nothing to do with civil engineering. But I reached out to her. I was sent, you know, it goes to selling yourself, right? I told her, I was like, hey, my name is MIRAMOVES. I am a first-year master's student in chemistry. I am I have good prowess in spectroscopy, infrared spectroscopy, SEM, blah, blah. I showed myself to her. And guess what? I got the job. I got the job to work in civil engineering, and I was analyzing the cement that she was synthesizing. And it was very interesting because We have a paper publication, like we had a journal publication out of that. And my name is there. My name is like far, but it's still in there somewhere. My name is still there somewhere, right? So you don't limit yourself as an international student. That is for undergrad, that is for masters. For PhDs, it's more like you are looking, I know we are going to talk about like what's life after school, but for PhDs, it's like you are working to get a job. You are doing strategies and playing your cards right. So at the end of your PhD, you want to get a job. Yeah. So for PhD, it's more calculated. Well, I don't think if I was a PhD, I was going to go work with a civil engineering and do cement, because I know that's not where I want to be, right? So you are more calculated. You are looking at getting serious internships in where you want to be. Because trust me, more than 50% of people who do their internships in a company for PhD end up working there. Oh, wow. Legit. So they build relationships, they build connections, they build, like, your internship pretty much should be you selling yourself to stupor. Like, you are letting them know you are agile, you are exciting, you are, you know, putting in all of your best effort so that they can call you back when you are done with the PhD, pretty much. So yeah, so that's my undergrad, master's, and PhD. Yeah.
So from your response, you have been able to show that it is possible to study and work during your time studying in the USA. Now, tell me about the coursework. What is it like? How easy is it to blend work and study? I would say that a one-year master's degree in the UK is quite hectic. And if you are going to utilize the entire 20 hours a week to work, it is definitely going to tell on your performance, because sometimes you would have to stay late at night just to complete your coursework, because it is actually very hectic for a master's degree.
Is there a graduate student who sleeps early?
Sleeping is good, Mira, stop. Okay, but my question is, what is the workload like, you know, for students in the US? I know that for somebody who did undergraduate degree in US, during masters, it will be easier for the person. But for people who did undergraduate degrees in their country and then they're going to a foreign country to do postgraduate, in fact, we need like 3 months to find our foot, first of all. The first semester, some of us don't even know what is happening there, because you're still trying to understand, okay, what are they doing? How do I, because things happen very fast. And before you know it, time is going. How is it like in the US? The workload, the academic work, how many times do master students necessarily have to go to class from Mondays to Fridays? Tell us about that, please. Let's just clarify. Let's know whether to be going to the UK or to come to the US.
That's a very good question. In one of my YouTube videos, I talked about how it is very, 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 very important to actually find students in your program via LinkedIn. Yeah. You cannot beat that. Finding students in your department, in your program via LinkedIn before you even arrive saves you so many mistakes. Why? Because they've been through it. Yeah. And especially if, not necessarily, but it's going to be a plus if they are from your country. And that is one thing a lot of students take for granted. I cannot count the amount of students that have reached out to me coming to my previous institution. You know, like, they just want to know how it is. Some of them wanted to know how it was working with my previous supervisor. Is he good? Like, tell me person to person. Is he what they say he is? Is he really good, right? So a lot of them want to know, oh, can you please give me some of your books from so and so class? You know, all of that helps you so much because it saves you so much stress. Yeah. This person that you are connecting with has already been through the system. They can give you their notes. They can give you their books. They will tell you, don't register for this class, register for this class. Because if you register for this class, C is where you are going. You know, some of them will tell you, it is irreconcilable. Like, you cannot even deal. You cannot even bypass knowing somebody from the department. That person gives you the inside info. Yeah. They tell you how it is. And they tell you, like, legit let you know if you are in for whatever you are in for. So you psych yourself, because transitioning from say an international country to the US is already fast-paced, right? Here you have internet, you have emails, you have whatever to look at. We barely even look at our emails back in our home country. It was when I came to the US that I realized, hey, Charlie, emails is everything.
You have to be
I have
looking
to keep
at emails
refreshing my emails before things will pass me by. In Ghana, I don't really care about emails, like WhatsApp me. But in the US, your emails, people need to reach out to you. Nobody's going to send you a text. They're going to send you an email. So that is one of the, I would say, culture shock that I had to adjust to. So many adjustments. You need to adjust to so many things. The workload is there. The workload is there. Ghana, Nigeria, everywhere, the workload is there. How do you allocate your time? So the only way I can advise somebody who is going to be like coming to the US and is going to be talking about workload and schooling and courses is get your foot into the door by knowing what you are up for before you even come through. And that is by reaching out to students via LinkedIn, right? Yeah.
Very interesting. You would still get a lot of culture shock, but it would do you some good if you ask questions. And please, when you are being told to approach somebody on LinkedIn, do not come to me and say, Couscous, what is it like studying in Queen Mary University? Where do you want me to start from?
That's why I like the guy or the person who sends, who asked that question. It was very apt, direct.
Exactly.
Don't do that where you send a DM and say hi, and you just say hello. Please, guys, let's do better. Let's do better. Don't just send a DM and just say hi, and then you say hello, and you say how are you, and we say fine. What is this now, bro? Please, let's do better.
It just shows that you have not done any research. Coming to someone to say, oh, what is it like studying in New York University? Where do you want? Is it about housing? Is it about work? Is it about workload? Is it about the course content? Where do you want the person to start? So you have to be very specific. Ask about something specific and let it be that you have done your research. The first research you can do is just digesting the university websites and then coming with specific questions. People know that I respond to my DMs a lot, but sometimes when I see these very generic questions, I really don't have what to say. Okay, thank you so much, Mira, for that clarification. So you're saying that I think what I picked out of it was prioritizing and time management, okay? You can still study, get the best out of your education and still work so you don't run into debt, because as a student, you still have to pay your bills. So thank you so much. It's actually the same thing in the UK. There are some people that started working from day one of their master's degree and they still graduated well. There are others that said there was no time, the workload wants to kill them. So it's just about time management and prioritizing. All right, thank you so much, Mira. I don't know if I should take this question. I skipped it when we were talking about funding, but I think I'm going to leave it until the end so that we do not run out of time. We have done 1 hour, actually. We're just 2 minutes away from 1 hour, and we have just been getting so much value. Thank you so much to everyone who is dropping some comments. Mira, they are thanking you. There's somebody who wants to go to your alma mater here, so I'm sure they are coming for you.
I'm also targeting University of North Carolina, UNCG.
Yeah.
Woo -hoo. Awesome. Go for it, girl. Go for it.
All right. Thank you so far, Mira. Now, I understand you have told us the documents that we need. You've told us how to write our personal statement to indicate that we need funding. You've told us what to do in order to get jobs when we get into school, how to balance our schedule so that we can get the, work, study, life balance. Actually, this time not work-life balance, study-life balance. Please, Mira, if I do all of these things and I get the admission, I know that a lot of people might have issues with visa. Student visa rejection is not a popular thing for, for studying in the UK. But can you tell us a bit more about the challenges that international students usually experience in visa rejections to study in the UK? Or is it a very smooth, route? If I apply for my student visa and I already have admission and then I apply for visa, what are my chances? And if I am rejected, what is the possible cause? Or what are the things that you have heard so far that are in, standing in the ways of students, international students that want to study in the US with respect to visa?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, actually. And I have this video on my channel where I interviewed pretty much a friend of mine who just came in January of 2022. So she has a more fresh embassy experience than me, right? And unfortunately, after the pandemic, it's been really difficult for students to actually acquire visa from Ghana. And the reasons are numerous, like backlog, and all of those things. But post-pandemic, I think it's getting back on track. It's getting back on track. But one of the reasons, I really cannot say, I really, this is like dicey, and I can't really like pinpoint the timeline, right? But I would say what I would do now is give like a general timeline. I don't want to be too specific, right? Yeah. So the timeline is you apply to your school, apply for your funding, you get your funding, you get your admission, you accept your admission. Now they start the paperwork. Sometimes you've already sent an unofficial transcript. They will require you to send an official transcript for them to process your I-20. Your I-20 is a document that the government issues to the school on your behalf, and the school either ships it or mails it to you that you use to go get your visa, pretty much. Your I-20 contains how much the school is giving. Well, first of all, the I-20 contains how much your tuition is for a year, how much the school is giving, and how much you've said you would give if it's not full funding. If it's full funding, it shows how much, including housing, including whatever, stipend, books, whatever. So a typical I-20 shows, I don't know if I can share my screen for what it looks like, just so.
Okay, that is like the pass, confirmation of acceptance of studies in the UK. Please go ahead, you can share your screen, you have access to that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna show you a quick example of what an I-20 looks like. Okay, awesome. All right. Copy image, and then paste image. All right, cool. All right. So this is what an I-20, I'm just gonna do, because it's way easier to do this. So this is what an I-20 looks like, right? I'm just gonna quickly open this up for everybody to see. Right, so you see down here, I'm gonna zoom it in. So this is an I-20, right? F1. Yeah, like there are two different types of visa. I don't want to like go into detail, but for clarity and for back like tracking, two different types of visa, F1 visa and J1 visa. I have a video on my channel. You can go know the differences between the two because one offers more opportunities than the other. So this is F1 visa. So you go down here, you see the yellow one. It says estimated average cost for 4 months, student funding for 4 months, right? You see tuition and fees, living expenses, expenses of the dependent, and then total. And it says how much the school is going to be giving you, right? So this is what you take to the embassy. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of people get rejected is because what you've said you want to give does not match the bank statement you brought, right? So for instance, in your I-20, you told the school that, well, the school says your tuition is maybe $30,000 US dollars, and the school is going to give you $25,000 US dollars. And you said you were going to bring $5,000 US dollars. You've told the school. And now you go to your embassy, everything, and you provided an account with $150. This is hypothetical. Now, they're not going to say, oh, well, the reason why I'm going to be failing or rejecting your visa is they just were, okay, well, thank you so much for your document. Thank you. Okay, they're just going to hand you a white paper that is already rejected you and be like, thank you so much for your thank you. And next person, please. That's it. And then you go back, you'll be like, what is going on? Da, 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 da. That is one of the reasons. So one of the reasons is no.
Wow.
The US Embassy already has a pre-typed documents because of legal reasons is already there. And usually it's funny, but when we go to the embassy and we see somebody coming out with white paper, we know, okay. So it's like, so some people quickly squeeze the white paper in their pocket before they come out. That way you don't know which is.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so the thing is, you want to be as apt as possible. If you've told the school that you are giving, for instance, $5,000, you necessarily don't have to be the beneficiary on the account. It could be a family member, and the family member has a letter attaching your application saying, I, Kuseme, has relinquished $5,000 to Mira, USD, to assist in their education and any other expenses that might come up. I'm willing to, it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be, you just need to have a document that is explaining to the officer that, well, this person is the person I know and they are bringing this document to attach to, you know, and it's kind of like way over 5,000, maybe 6,000 or whatever, or 7,000 or whatever. Well, you know, okay account, you know. So those are one of the topmost reasons why a lot of people don't get accepted.
Okay.
Another reason that I can think of why people don't get accepted is, funny enough, some people don't even know the program they're coming to study. I don't know if it's nerves or something, but you need to be able to be free enough to express yourself, because they are psychologists in the consulate. They are looking at your body movement. They are looking at everything. And some people might just ask you, what is your name? And they already got the information. They are just matching what they have in their system with what you brought to see if there are any incoherences or any inconsistencies. And they'll just ask you one or two questions, and that's it. So yeah, visa process is, and on top of everything, I'll say pray. Yeah. You have to pray, because sometimes it's beyond, I don't understand. Sometimes I really don't know what's going on. So you need to have God's backing as well. But yeah. Some of the questions are very generic, and some of them are very, very technical, and they go in depth in asking you, oh, do you want to come, dad, do you want to come back to your home country? It's like, everybody knows that, like, do you want to come back to your country? When you're done, you definitely have to say you would come back and whatnot. So yeah.
That's interesting. And it's almost the same thing with the UK. Of course, that's what we call proof of funds for those applying for UK student visa. The amount that is in your I-20, right?
Yeah, I-20.
I-20 is just like CAS in UK. The amount on your I-20 should reflect on your bank statements. Is there a time limit for this bank statement? Like you have to provide a bank statement that is maybe 6 months old or something.
Yeah, around 6 months, 3 months. I think it shouldn't be more than 6 months, but it's like, and it shouldn't be like a lump sum. Like I said, I'm just giving generic, like there's more detail. It shouldn't be, oh, somebody's bank statement was like 100, then 6,000 and 100. No, it should be sequential. Yeah.
Interesting. So please, if you're applying for, sometimes, why would you go for a visa interview that you don't know the details of your course? Why? I remember during my visa interview, Mira, I mentioned the professor's name and the book, because they were trying to ask me, why did you choose the university and your course? And I was trying to show how I read this professor's publication. I want to go study on that. They asked me for the professor's name. They wrote the name down. They wrote the publication. What if I was lying?
Exactly.
So
you need to know
the details of your course at the tip of your finger, because it also, you'll be confident when you know what you're talking about. And this usually happens to people who apply through their agents. If you're applying through an agent, it is not an excuse for you not to go through the details of your course. At least you are the ones going to study, it's not the agent. So do your agent a favor, go through the course content, ask questions, And just pray like
Will
Mira
it be
said.
the agent that will go for the visa interview? No, it's you, right? So
It's
you have
that
to
will go for
know.
the interview. So you ask as much questions as you can, and then just pray that the odds be in your favor. Thank you so much, Mira, for that. We are making progress. Before we go into the next set of questions, which is going to be like post-work and post-study visas and all of that, let me just go through the few questions that some of our audience have sent. Kachi was talking about funding. He said, should applicants for master's program reach out to professors for funding opportunities? Please, can you just briefly throw more light on that question?
For master's application, I would say you should, because as we've already mentioned previously, for master's it's a 50-50. You know, like you need to know if there is actually funding for masters. And we already mentioned in the time past that PhDs is what's mostly guaranteed for like funding. You don't need to like stress so much. But for masters, you should know what you're getting into before you actually apply. So if you look at the requirements in the course description and the program description, and they didn't specifically let you know that there's going to be complete funding for masters, yes, absolutely. You want to reach out to the professor and ask if there is some form of grant that he has that covers international student funding. Because best believe, in my master's program, I encountered a grant that was for only US citizens. Yes, it could be crazy like that. And they give the professor money and it's only for US citizens. And then it's like, there's really nothing the professor can do. He cannot give you because you are an international. So you want to be very as explicit as possible. Let them know that you are an international student and you wanted to know if he has funding for you. Does he have any grants that can cover you, or does she have any grant that can cover you? And that helps a lot. That helps a lot. So it's a 50-50 thing. You just have to know at the point of your application if it's even worth applying. Unless, of course, it's a free application fee with waivers, then you can just apply and put the rest to God. Yeah.
All right. I hope that question has been answered, Kachi. So yes, you can go ahead and approach a professor to ask if you could benefit from the funding they have. Maro asked, he or she said, I also heard that schools that require WES evaluation are less competitive. How true is this?
Okay, so for evaluations, you have two different types, right? Because you need to, first off, in the US or Canada, transcribe your transcript to their standard. Because you might graduate with a second class upper in the African system doesn't necessarily mean it transcribes or translates into their system of education, right? So you need to be able to evaluate or transcribe your transcripts to match their standards, so they put everybody on a level playing field. For schools that are, I don't really think schools that are WES, that require WES evaluation. By the way, WES is World Evaluation Service.
Yeah.
I don't know if schools that require those are actually less competitive. Competitiveness is relative. You know, NYU is not an Ivy League school, but on its own league, it's there. So competitiveness is very relative. And if your school is requiring, which most schools do actually, because how else will they, evaluate your transcripts, right? So I don't think it's completely correct to say schools that are requiring your evaluations are less competitive, because competitiveness is actually very relative. Yeah.
Of course, and I believe that it is actually one of the ways they are actually more competitive, because they want to evaluate international results, which is also a factor they may use to narrow down who they admit. So it should actually be more competitive rather than less competitive. So thank you for answering that question. I'm going to ask another question from our participant before I proceed to my own question. This one, Edward says, would you advise that an international student writes GRE to secure a good funding for studies in the US?
That's a fantastic question. Fantastic question. Well, The pandemic brought good and bad, and one of the good it brought is a lot of schools actually waived the GRE. So schools that would typically require GRE, by the way, GRE is Graduate Records Examination, which is an exam that is actually taken by all interested applicants. So they have a level playing field as well to know how best to evaluate a student, right? So it's like a standardized exam that everybody takes, and based on your score, it's a standardized exam. So it's like, it's standard for this everybody. So your score actually tells you where you are placed on the pedestal.
Yeah.
A lot of schools have waived GRE. So I cannot categorically say that without GRE, you cannot secure good funding. So you need to be sure of the school's requirements. And if they say no GRE, would you want to go write a GRE by force? No, right? So, so some schools don't require GRE thanks to the pandemic. And some of them are limited. So they say, oh, applicants applying up until 2023 don't need to write the GRE. So a lot of people that I know are actually taking advantage of this. Yeah. After, they might change and say, now you have to write the GRE, but a lot of schools are also pushing for no GRE. I know New York University now is currently pushing for no GRE because of the cost involved, and it's like, you know, so it's up to the school. You need to be sure to do your homework to know if they require GRE. So for funding, I mean, if the school says no GRE, the funding is still going to be there despite of the GRE or no GRE. So yeah, you need to be sure of the school's requirements before you apply.
Nice. That's interesting, of course. So Edwards, I hope you've gotten the answer to your question. You only apply, you only take GRE if the school requires it, okay? And if the school does not, good for you. All right. Maro is asking another question. He or she says, with an undergraduate degree in biochemistry, second class lower, I plan on applying for master's in public health at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Please, how can I increase my chances?
I think what Mara is doing is to milk me off this information because she knows he or she knows I schooled in Greensboro.
Of course, that's why she's here.
I can see. So like the questions we've been answering, second class lower means nothing to the school. What matters is, what does your evaluation say? Because second class lower, they're like, is that a 3.0? Is that a 2.8? Is that a 3.2? What is that, right? So you need to first off convert your transcripts to convert your transcripts by means your GPA to the standardized GPA. And there are a lot of free tools you can use for an unofficial transcript. I always advertise Scholaro because Scholaro GPA calculator is a very, very, very useful tool that you can use to, and I'm going to put that in the link somewhere. Okay. You just get to like put in, and I'll advise you to do the course by course one. You just know, okay, well, honestly, I'm sitting, I don't even know what the second class lower is, because sometimes it could be 5.0 GPA or 4.0 GPA. Exactly, that's the website. Mm-hmm. So it could be a 5.0 GPA scale, it could be 4.0. So you just need to like, well, let them know that, well, my transcripts GPA translate into a 3.0 GPA on your scale. And if you look at that admissions requirement, I'm sure most of them require 3.0 and above, right? So if you, or some of them require 2.5 and above. So you just have to look at your master's degree in public health requirement. Is it a 3.0? And you convert, is it a 3.0 from your conversion? Then you know if you stand a chance. And on my channel, again, I spoke about the fact that it's not only your GPA. Yep. I spoke about my GPA on my channel. So if you want to know what my GPA was, go watch it on my channel. But it's like, I want you to know that now people are realizing, or institutions are realizing, that it's not only by GPA, it's how you sell yourself. Yeah. It's how you sell yourself. It's how you tell them what you want to do. Couscous already mentioned, it's an investment. What would you do when they give you this opportunity? How would you better the department when they give you this opportunity? So at the end of the day, they don't only look at GPA. GPA just gets you through the door. What really makes you stand out are your statement of purpose, your cover letter, all of those things that they read to know who you are as a person, right? So yeah, I can't say off the top of my head if it increases your chances, but I hope with these few points of ours, you would know better. Yeah.
Very interesting. So at the end of the day, whatever result you graduated with, you would first have to, convert or evaluate in US standard. And if it meets the requirement, then you go for it. And do not just depend on what you graduated with. Bring in your professional experience to really sway them and show them that you are capable for the job. I have pasted Mira's channel on the link, Mira's link on the chat box. Actually, we have not talked about her channel enough. Mira's channel is a gold mine. She talks about everything studying in the US. And the most interesting thing about Mira's channel is she shares a lot of scholarship opportunities, different strategies on how to, I'm literally on her channel, and please check the channel out. You want to study in the US, this is the first go-to channel you should access. So whatever questions, she has addressed a lot of other things on the channel. So you do yourself a favor by checking it out. Check the chat box. Pasted the link, and the website she talked about for evaluating your GPA, I have pasted it. Scholaro at
thank you so much.
Scholaro.com. So go for it. Thank you so much, Mira, for all this interesting information. I'm sure that is very valuable to our audience. Now, the most interesting part of this, I'm very excited because if I come to the US, I want to know that I can get a job, a high-paying job for that matter. I have heard a lot of people say that US has better opportunities for international students post-study. I don't know how true that is, but as somebody who has studied there, and I'm sure you also know a lot of other international students who studied there and are done with schools now, rather than proceeding to do a PhD, after my undergrad, after my master's as an international student, what is the guarantee that I am going to get a job? Not a random job, a good job that I would live comfortably as a graduate. What are my chances? Please, just let us know. And what kind of jobs do you think international graduates easily get in the US?
Okay, that's a very, very necessary question to ask, actually, because first off, I cannot guarantee if you are going to get a job. It's up to the individual to do your homework, right? What I can tell you is, like you correctly said, the US, thankfully, has a very, very high acceptance rate for international students working post-education, post-grad. And one of the things you need to know is, again, the F1. That's why I hammered on my channel that there is a very good chance that you should know what the school is giving you before you leave, or before you even apply. Some schools in the US don't have the capacity to provide an F1 document. An F1 document, yes. An F1.
I'm shocked.
An F1 document on the I-20 allows you to bring your spouse and gives them an F2. So your spouse or your child. A J1 document doesn't. So at the end of the day, you want to know, okay, this school I'm applying to now, people that are looking for competitive, be sure to look properly before you look for competitive schools, right? Because some schools don't have the capacity to give you an F1. So they give you a J1, which is equivalent to an exchange visa. So it's what they give you when you are doing an exchange program. So that caps your ability. Yep. And with an F1 visa, there's something called an OPT, which is optional practical training. Optional practical training. Oh, Adamu, what's your question?
Adamu's question.
Okay, due to financial constraints, I want to ask for states I think you should read this, maybe.
I will look for that question because I didn't see Adamu's question.
It says, due to financial constraints, I want to ask for states that their standard of living isn't high so that we would limit our searching of schools in that state. Oh, I see.
Interesting.
Okay, so like I said, Google is your #1 search engine, obviously, for obvious reasons. You can quickly do a Google search, top states with high cost of living. They actually released the 2021, I believe, or 2022, top states with the highest cost of living. And you want to like know that. And that is a very good question. And my apologies and our apologies for missing that.
Apologies, I didn't see that
good question because yeah, you want to know, like I was talking about how your stipend should match the cost of living in the state. So that's a very good question because you knowing which states have a lower cost of living would make you, accept whatever the stipend they are giving you, knowing you'll be able to live by. An average rent in Greensboro, like Mara would be going, is probably $300 to $500. An average rent in New York City, as it is right now, is in the thousands.
Wow.
So yeah, it's in the thousands per month. So if you are giving, like I was telling you, if they give you Greensboro stipend in New York,
you would have,
right? So you want to be able to know, and that's a good question. I really hope I've answered your question right now. So you can do a quick Google search of what states have like top 10, because we have 52 states in the US, top 10 or top 20 states with high cost of living, and you narrow them, you look through and be like, okay, well, maybe you want to study in those states, right? So it's your job to do the search, and down that's your first filter to know, okay, well, definitely I don't want to live in these states, your first filter to go by. So like moving back to the question of the post education workforce, with the optional practical training, which is the OPT that is given to a student for STEM, which is science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, it gives you the ability to work in industry for 2 years. And you can renew that, right? For non-STEM, it's lesser. So with the STEM, which is science, education, science, engineering, technology, and mathematics. So if your program of study falls in this category, then you are eligible for getting an OPT document that enables you to work after your post-grad for 2 years, and it's renewable, right? Based on your contract with your employer. The gag here is some of the industry don't have, again, the ability to employ international students. So it's always one hurdle after the other, but it's doable because I know so many people, like countless people who have worked in industry with international, documentation. I know so many people. Again, don't sleep on LinkedIn. Don't sleep on LinkedIn. I have made so much connection on LinkedIn that it fascinates me, because LinkedIn should be your go-to when you see somebody in your school, an alum of your school who is from your country. And the good thing with LinkedIn is if you click on the company and you have your school in the bio, whatever, it says this person has worked here and is from your school, then you can actually reach out to the person and say, hey, I'm a student from your school, blah, 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 just like Mara is doing to me right now, trying to milk me, and I'm fine, go nicely and let them know that, oh, I will be graduating next year and I want to know how you climb the ropes. Now you're working in Apple. I know you started out as an international student. I would like for you to show me the ropes. How do I apply for OPT? How does Apple do this? Reach out to them because they've done it before, right? So for STEM, you have 2 years postgraduate employment opportunities. For non-STEM, it's less. And with the STEM, it's renewable after 2 years, it's renewable. And there are certain companies that have the ability to employ internationals, and they actually file for residency for you. I have a whole breakdown of that on my channel as well. They actually file for residency for you, something called the H-1B. So they actually file that for you to get permanent residency. And a lot of people have gone through that route. A lot of people. It's actually very easy to go through that route here in the US. So yeah, for lack of time, that's just the tip of how to go about it. So yes, there's definitely employment opportunities after school.
I was listening keenly during this period because it is the information that I really don't know and I needed to get it. So you're saying that at the end of your, at the end of studies for international students, those in the STEM field would apply for something called OPT, and then which gives them 2 years of, visa to remain and look for jobs in the US. Could you tell us what happens if at the expiration of these 2 years, the holder of an OTP or OPT rather is not able to secure a job within these 2 years? What happens? Can the person on their own renew, or do they need an employer to renew it?
So you need an employer to do the renewal because it means you are still in good standing with the company, right? So you can, for instance, a situation where the company that does file for an H-1B for you usually takes about 2 to 5 years, right? So if your OPT expires in 2 years and maybe within the 2 years, they've already put in the application for an H-1B and it was rejected, then they can renew for you. So a lot of internationals are actually stuck with a company because they are hoping that the company, proceeds, because it's a lot of money and a lot of time to file the H-1B, right? So it's like the company, for instance, I know Intel, Apple, Google, Mira, they have a quota of international H-1Bs that they file in a year, and it runs into tens of thousands because this company have money, right? So they actually accept international students who have OPT, and based on your performance and whatnot, and if your H-1B processing goes through, then if it's rejected the first time, then they can reapply for extension with the hopes that the second time is going to go through.
Wow, Mira, this is a lot of information. I am going to slow you down a bit. Now, we've taken care of the OPT for STEM. So I'm not in the STEM field. I'm a lawyer. I come and I do my LLM in US. What are my options after studies? What kind of visa am I supposed to apply to or apply for on my own without an employer? Because there's no guarantee that I will get a job immediately. So on my own as an international student who just completed my studies, what kind of visas are available for me to remain in the US?
Okay, so an OPT is actually not a visa, it's a document that makes you be in working terms. The H-1B is actually what's the visa. So the OPT is just optional practical training documentations that shows that you are now with an employer and you are staying in the US with valid stay, right? And the employer then seeks to do the H-1B visa for you. With the non-STEM, I would give a typical example of a lady I know in Arizona State University who is from the non-STEM field, and she applied to the university to work in the university, and they granted her the OPT. So it's all about searching for your information. She's working in the university as a resource person, something, I don't know. But she did a very, very basic non-STEM course, and she is from I don't know what country she's from. Was it? I can't remember, but yeah. So she did a non-STEM graduate program, and she knows that the potential for OPT lasting longer is going to be difficult. So she did her research and she's working in the school full capacity, and there she's working with the OPT, and the school is actually looking forward to like helping her get whatever she needs to be in schools full standing. So it's up to you to actually look through. And I know another friend of mine who is from NYU, she graduated 2020. She is in journalism. She, obviously that's not a STEM field, but she's currently renewing her OPT with her employers, and there are some documentations that she's putting in to be in good standing with the university, with the immigration and everything, while she's waiting for the companies to actually file for her. So yeah, it's up to you to put your foot in the right direction, STEM OPT or non-STEM OPT.
Okay, Mira, thank you so much. Are you saying that without an employer, without a job, when I'm done with school, without a job, because the employer is the person to give me the OPT, which will allow me apply for the visa, which is F1. Are you saying without me getting a job after studies, I do not have chances of staying back in the US?
You can do postdoctoral studies, which is still a job. With postdoctoral studies, after like postdoctoral studies, like you can do.
That's for you currently doing a PhD. After your PhD, you can choose to do postdoc.
Okay, so you mean for like a master's?
Yeah,
there are different ways.
Like
there are different ways,
and I don't want to do PhD at all. I just want to work, but I do not have job yet.
There are other ways that I'd rather say off camera, but but at the end of the day,
I'm talking about the official routes. Do you know why I'm insisting on this question?
Yeah, I'm talking about official routes too. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, as a student, the surest way is by getting an employer. That's why you need to make sure to get a good, that's just the fact of the matter.
Wow.
As a student, the surest way. With the PhD, it's a little bit more relaxed because a lot of people I know transition to postdoctoral studies for like a year whilst they're applying to the job of their dreams. So that postdoctoral studies is just to make them still be in good standing before they actually opt to. So I know a couple of people who did postdoc, and this year now being a year of their postdoc, they are now in official company, like they moved away from postdoctoral studies to like actual employment. So yeah.
Wow, because why I was asking is because in the UK, there is a new graduate visa that is not dependent on an employer. So if I finish my undergraduate, master's, or PhD in the UK now, and my student visa expires, I just have to apply for the graduate visa, whether I have a job or not. Once I apply for the graduate visa and I confirm, or the visa office, the home office confirms from my university that I have successfully completed my studies and I have passed. If I did undergraduate, they'll give me 2 years, undergraduate and master's, they'll give me 2 years graduate visa. For PhD, they'll give them 3 years graduate visa. And they can remain in the UK throughout this period with or without an employer. That is why I was really insistent on this question. So
that's good.
Tying a student to an employer could be very challenging because some of us or some people may not easily get the job of their dream or even any job.
To the best of my knowledge, you don't have to get a job of your dream right after school. You can use something called the transition job. Okay. I know a lot of people who migrate to Canada are doing transition jobs whilst they wait for their job of their dreams, right? So they are using the transition jobs to stay in status and to get their foot on the ground before they transition into the job of their dreams, because it's like getting straight there is not going to be feasible legally. So you want to, like, you know, be in transition whilst you are still, just so you are still legally, you know, here, and then you transition. So yeah, to the best of my knowledge, this is, I know for students, it's usually getting staying via employment routes. Yeah.
Interesting. And I now see why you were really, you know, emphasizing the need to do internships and
100%.
Because this opens doors for you to, you know,
100%
be retained with an employer. So at the 100%. End of the day, if you're studying, if you're an international student in the US, while you are studying, you have to actively search for permanent employment and do with employers that can issue OPT so you can be able to stay back after studies. Thank you.
And one more thing I want to add is you can actually use your OPT if you don't want to, like, if you are still looking to get a job outside of education, like if you have a master's, you can opt with the department to be like a clinical faculty or like an instructor or like an adjunct instructor on record where you get paid, you know, and with that, you are using the time to actually transition into the job of your dreams. So you just have to do your research and know which is which and which favors you best.
Interesting. Means you can also work with your university as an employer. Okay, with your university, and you know, your university will give you that OPT so you can apply for your visa. Mira, we've been discussing for 1 hour 30 minutes. Did you notice?
Absolutely. Getting on to 2 hours, girl.
You didn't notice, I'm sure, because We're just spitting out value. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I haven't seen any further questions so far, and you have been able to answer all my questions and the participants' questions. Thank you so much for this value. I'm just running through the comment section to ensure that we don't.
We're about to end the live, guys. So please put in your final questions before we go.
And let's also see your review. Let's also see your review in the comment section. Was this session worth it? Are you going to go ahead to apply to the US with all this information? One final question from Maro. Can I use a debit card restriction to apply for application fee waiver? Ooh.
That's a very interesting question.
Okay.
What I know that has worked for applying for application fee waiver is letting them know that you are part of, for instance, you would say you are part of like a society. I don't know if like your program, you said your program was Masters of Public Health. Are you part of any society, like society, association? For instance, what I used was my affiliations to different associations as part of my reasons why they should give me an application fee waiver. Because some schools give, some schools don't. Some schools want you to tell them why they should give you an application fee waiver. I don't know if saying debit card restriction, if it's going to work, because I know they would be like, well, you need to do something else to get your fees paid, right? So I know you, okay, well, if you say debit card restriction is your application fee waiver excuse, when you need to pay your service fee, will you say
what is going to be?
Exactly. So, you know, like you need to like think a little bit beyond application fee waiver and want to like, you know, mask or like craft your reason more, you know, without any reasonable doubt. Because saying debit card restriction, they'll be like, okay, well, you need to pay a service fee for us to issue you your I-20. After we've issued you your I-20, you need to pay a service fee to move on. Then I don't know. I don't know about paying for application fee with debit cards from Nigeria. I have no idea.
Well, yeah, I'm actually going to just quickly answer that. To be honest, I doubt that a debit card restriction would be a proper reason for your application fee to be waived, because of course you have to pay your fees, and if they waive your application fee because of debit card issues, how are you going to pay your tuition? So ideally, you would have to go to the bank. Nigerian debit cards have a lot of restrictions. So usually what you do if you're doing an international transaction, especially to a foreign university, you go to the bank and fill a form that is showing that you need this transaction for education purposes. And the banks will usually approve it for you. But what I should tell you is do not wait till the dying minute. These transactions sometimes takes months because it's in foreign currency. So you have to do it. Don't wait for the if the deadline for application is next week and you want to apply this week, you might miss that deadline, because sometimes it takes some banks 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, even up to 6 weeks to process your foreign application. That is a very, you know, that is one of the challenges you have to deal with as a prospective international student, and you have to figure that out, put that into account, take that into account while trying to make your application. Start on time, because you need a lot of time, even with payment of deposits. You know, some schools have deadlines. I don't know if deposit applies in the US, but I know that in the UK, deposit applies. And sometimes waiting for a Nigerian bank, you could miss your deposit deadline. So at the end of the day, you have to start the process very early. Give yourself a lot of margin with the deadlines so that you will not run out of time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. Thank you, Mira. We have been
and also I wanted to add that on my channel, I have a couple of universities in the US that have waived application fee. So you really want to consider that as well.
Great. Please, before we go, I have already pasted Mira's link, Mira's YouTube link. Visit the channel to get a lot of other issues addressed. We couldn't have addressed everything in this space of 1 hour, 30 minutes, of course not. So visit the channel and subscribe if you can, so that you can stay up to date. Remember, Mira had said that for fall applications in the US, it will likely close in December. So now is the time to get started.
Yep. And that last question from Iseh now, sure. Apply to as many schools as possible, especially if they have application fee waiver, because when you apply to so many schools, I can't keep like give you a number, but when you apply to so many schools, you can now compare the fundings that they've actually offered you.
Yeah.
But if you have a limited school that you've applied to, you can compare, you take whatever is given. But if you apply to a good number, you can now weigh the funding and see which one is better, right? You have better choices and flexibility to choose from. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mira. I think we have to stop here because if we continue taking questions, we are not going today. Just as a last word, what would you advise people to do in order to increase their chances of getting into a US university?
I expected that question because the name of your thing is Get In. So get ahead. So we need to get ahead of ourselves.
Of course.
My advice is, to me, from my experience, I would say make sure you get a strong statement of purpose, strong personal statements, because it's not only about GPA, it's not only about GRE and TOEFL. They now want to know, if they bring you in, will you survive? Would you contribute? Would you make a meaningful impact? Is it worth it bringing this person? So it goes beyond GPA and TOEFL and GRE. Have a very solid, solid statement of purpose and SOP.
All right, thank you so much for that. Of course, I also have a couple of videos on my channel that I have been able to share with people how to write a strong statement of purpose. Your reference letter is also very important. The content of your reference letter, get a reference from a very strong referee and let the content of the reference letter speak to your credibility and your ability to take on a serious program in that university. So yeah, somebody asked, can we assist with SOP? So I run a consulting firm, a study abroad consulting firm, Get Ahead Education Services. And we have a couple of services that you can book through the link. There's always that link in my description box. Every description box to my video has the link to book our services. You can visit our Instagram page, the Get Ahead Education Services, and you can also book my services or our services via that link. So that we have a lot of services. If you cannot afford the services, all you can do is sleep on this channel. And trust me, you really do not need to pay anyone to get you a strong SOP if you dwell on the channel and get the value that the videos have provided. But if you now insist on getting my personal service to go ahead and review your application, you have to at least pay for the time. Okay, so I advise people to go through the channel, visit Mira's channel and subscribe to it. Please appreciate Mira in the comment section. It is not easy. Mira is a PhD researcher in the US.
In the lab right now.
She gave us, in the lab actually, she gave us 2 hours of her time for free. For free. If you wanted to consult Mira for 2 hours, I'm sure you will not pay anything less than $500, but you got this for free. So please say thank you to Mira in the comment section. Mira, thank you so much for your time and all the information you provided. They're very helpful. And we're also going to save this video in each of our channels so that if you need to come back for reference purposes, you can come back for it. If you need to share it to somebody that needs it, please go ahead. And that would be the end of this session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you guys so much and have a good one and get ahead and get in, okay?
Of course, and let us know your success stories when you get in. Of course, we love to get this feedback so we know that at least you got something from it. Thank you so much, Mira. Signing out. I had so much fun on this session and I also learned a lot. I really did not know a lot about studying in US, but this is a good start. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to more of this in the future. Thank you too.
Expect me in New York very soon.
Period. Bye.